The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
The House of Mystery, and I'm Al Warren. Co-hosting today is the great Eric Shapiro.
How you doing, Mr. Warren?
Mr. Warren. Oh, I'm getting old. Turned 59, beginning of the end.
Oh, 59. Is that, didn't you have a recent birthday or something up or something? Yeah.
No, it just happened. So now I'm working on number 60. So.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Okay, so you're in the last year of your 50s.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
how does it feel?
Well, you know, if I had a lot of spare time, I would probably feel depressed, but I'm not. I'm too busy.
You gotta keep busy. I mean, I think that's good advice for everyone. Just stay busy.
Yeah, it's better not to think about it. You know, it's not a big deal. Just not. I outlived both my parents, so.
I mean, that's key. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what we're supposed to do.
You're shooting far. Yeah, that's the ideal way for it to work out. Yeah.
I always shoot far. Come on.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of shooting far, we have a great guest who's got a new book out called Chicago After Stonewall, and it's a history of the LGBTQ Chicago from gay lib to gay life, and that's Saint Sukie de la Croix. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for asking me. I'm coming up for my 70th birthday, so I shouldn't worry too much.
Oh, okay. You sound like you're 20 years younger.
Thank you. I love a man who lies.
That's why I'm here. That's why Al keeps me there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, you do have a very young sound to you. That's for sure. Chicago After Stonewall. What made you decide to put that together and write that?
Well, it's actually the sequel to something else I wrote, or it's part 2 of something else I wrote back in 2012. I had a book published by the University of Wisconsin Press called Chicago Whispers, A History of LGBT Chicago Before Stonewall. And it started in 1653. Before, I know Chicago wasn't there, but at the time, that was the first accounts of the feminine Native Americans in the Illinois tribes. And these accounts were written by the French explorers like Marquette. And I started there, and the book goes through 300 years of homosexuality, which is a long time. And I ended the book on the night of Stonewall, even though Stonewall didn't happen in Chicago. I had to end it somewhere. So I ended that book by writing about what was happening in the Chicago bars on the night that Stonewall was happening in New York. Now, Chicago After Stonewall, I picked up from the day after Stonewall in Chicago, and I went through, and it covers 6 years up to June 1975. And it was a really strange time because there wasn't really any gay newspapers then. There were a couple of leaflets, a couple of pamphlets, a little newsletter, but not much information was coming out. There was a newspaper called the Chicago Free Press. No, that was not that. I forgot what it's called. I remember. But it only had 26 issues, and it was very, the Chicago Gay Crusader, that was it. There was only 26 issues over the course of 3 years, and it was very much, it was one of those, I call it a nice try, you know. But it was like an old hippie newspaper in design and everything. But I ended Chicago After Stonewall in June 1975 because a newspaper called Gay Life came out. And it was a professional newspaper. So from that moment on, Chicago had many, many gay newspapers. And if you're a historian, you can look back and go from June 1975. And there's an unbroken stream of information until today. But those first 6 years at the beginning of the 70s were really underreported. And I set out to find out what really happened. So I tackled it from other issues. I mean, the mainstream press reported on homosexuals, but of course they didn't like us very much because we were perverted and sick and all that garbage. But so what I did, I went to student newspapers, like Roosevelt University, University of Chicago, and I started looking at those things. And gradually I had more leads. And I spent a lot of time in Northwestern University in Evanston because they have incredible archives of gay pamphlets and, it's just endless. I actually spent months going there every day. It was like a job when I was living in Chicago and making photocopies of all this stuff. So it's really an extension of my first book. There may be a third one, I don't know. It depends. It depends what kind of mood I'm in.
So do you feel like a lot of this history has been lost, or a lot of it's just not around?
A lot of it is lost. But if you know where to look, I mean, I'm not a historian. I'm a reporter. And a historian does things in different ways. They have a set way of doing things. A reporter is going to sell their grandmother to get the story. So to get information, I had to look under rocks, I mean, there's one thing I did. I went to a medical library in Chicago, and they wouldn't let me in because I never had a student card. And you have to use everything you've got. And my British accent in Chicago works wonders. Thank goodness for Downton Abbey, Jane Austen crap. Because I went to the woman on the desk and she said, "I'm sorry, we can't let you in. You're not a student." I said, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I've come all the way to England to look in this library. What a shame." And if you stand there long enough, even though you hear yourself sounding like a complete idiot, but if you stand long enough and talk, they cave in, And this woman not only let me in the library, she actually helped me do the research that I wanted to do. I guess I'm charming. If only she knew the real Saint Sukie.
Yeah, there's an accent. I've always thought about that, how self-aware you guys are of your accents. It's got to open doors. It's so lovely to listen to.
I'm losing it, really, because when I go back, which is less and less often, they think I'm American.
You're kidding me. Yeah, well, you could have fooled us.
They hear an American accent.
Wow, okay.
And I have lost it a little bit, Now, this book is basically about Chicago's response to the Stonewall Riots in New York, what happened afterwards.
Okay.
Did you find, was there a kind of the similar response in Chicago? Was it sort of
It wasn't reported in Chicago at all.
Oh.
The press never mentioned Stonewall. It was the only place in Chicago anybody knew anything about the Stonewall riots were in a small Mattachine Midwest Newsletter, and somebody wrote something that they read something in the New York Times. So it was not a big event at all. And but of course at the time, I think what people forget is that there were riots everywhere in America, because of the Vietnam War, and women were protesting for the Women's Liberation Front and also the Black Panthers. And I do write in the book about the connection between the Black Panthers and the Gay Liberation Front. They were working together for a while.
How people in Chicago, gay people in Chicago, felt about Stonewall at the time, if it made a big impact on them.
Well, I don't think it did. I mean, some people must have, a year later, in 1970, they'd had the first celebration of Stonewall, so somebody must have noticed it was happening for them to organize the first celebration. But when it first happened, nobody knew about it. I've met people, older people, that say they never knew anything about Stonewall until years later. But maybe they were closeted, but...
So when do you think Stonewall started to make an impact?
I think in Chicago, people started to take notice when the first march happened, because the first one in Chicago. The first celebration in Chicago in 1970 was really a political march. There wasn't any floats or anything, or I don't think there were drag queens or anything. It was a political march organized by the Gay Liberation Front. They weren't known for having a great sense of humor, So, but then after that, the second year it happened in 71, you started to see floats, and people started to look at it more as a celebration of being gay. And as the years rolled by, it became more and more celebratory. I mean, there were, the floats and everything, and people dressing up, and then, of course, it became very corporate, which is what it is now. Yeah.
Well, you say that the gay movement, or they actually had a tie-in with the Black Panthers. I find that interesting. Was it just the concept of both fighting for rights, or what was it that connected them?
Huey Newton was a great supporter of gay rights, and he made a very famous speech. The whole speech is in this book. I put the whole speech in there. But there were other members of the Black Panthers that were anti-gay. I'll tell you one Panther who was very gay supportive was the mother of Tupac Shakur.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember her name now, but she actually attended gay meetings at various sort of Black Panther conferences. She was very supportive.
Wasn't it like Shakira?
That's right, yes.
Yeah,
she was very supportive of gay rights, but there were members of the Black Panthers that weren't. Eldridge Cleaver was anti-gay, and others were too. And as the Black Panther movement fell apart, so did their connection with the gay movement. Because there was gays on the podium speaking at the Philadelphia conference, the Black Panther conference, which I think was in 1970. So there were surprising connections. I was actually surprised when I found all this out.
So there were connections, but it was never 100% stable or holistic. Like, not everybody among the Panthers was on board, but there was a period where it worked.
Yeah, generally, the Panthers were on board.
Yeah, I quite often say, I wish there were a group like the Black Panthers now in today's times, or people always look at me like, oh my God, really? And I'm like, well, the right needs something to be scared of.
Well, it's Antifa, right?
Yeah, well, please.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
No such thing as Antifa,
Yeah.
It doesn't exist at all. It's just some Republican thing, I agree with you. I think it would be nice to see the Black Panthers back. They did a lot of great work. But they were that's when police were shooting them as well. Getting shot all over the place.
Yeah.
So things have not changed that much.
So what do you hope people get out of the book? What do you hope this book does for?
I wrote this book because it really pisses me off that gay history has been ignored. And the contribution that gay people have made to the world and to society is being brushed under the carpet. When I do my talks, I don't do them anymore, but there's one thing I say, that when we go to the Vatican and see the Sistine Chapel, and you see all these tourists there looking up at the Sistine Chapel, you need to tap them on the shoulder and say, I hope you enjoy this gay ceiling.
Right.
And this belongs to us. And we're sharing this gay ceiling with you. But you have to remember, this is a gay ceiling. Because Michelangelo was gay. Same with Alan Turing, who cracked the German code in the Second World War in England. People just do not accept what we've contributed.
There's a sense of erasure. It's like the gay component of it is taken out of it.
That's right. America's really good at rewriting its history and ignoring.
Yeah. And in present-day Chicago, I'm really curious about these newspapers. Is there a number of gay newspapers at the moment?
No, I mean, because of the pandemic, the climate, gay newspapers are disappearing everywhere.
It's hard for newspapers to sustain, yeah.
One, Grab magazine is still going, and Windy City Times, which is the serious newspaper that I used to be the associate editor of, it is gone digital now. So, no, they're not. I don't know, and I feel bad about that. I feel bad that our culture is going and our clubs are closing down, the bars are closing down. And it's hard to tell whether that's just happening anyway or whether it's because of the pandemic. But then I have to tell myself, as an old man, I'm aware that I cannot cling on to the past. And everything changes. And, there'll be another way that the gay community is going to go. I don't know. But, I'm nearly 70. And, I see this happening, and I miss, our culture disappearing. But, of course, maybe it needs to disappear for us to move on to the next stage. I don't know.
And you also mentioned earlier something that I think is a big part of what you're saying, which is the corporatization, right? Like we just, Pride Month with this last month, and I hear so many people echoing in your community that it's been corporatized, like it robs it a lot of a lot of its meaning, and as you're saying, a lot of its culture. The culture gets bled out of it.
Well, that's what's happening. Before I left Chicago 7 years ago, I went to a Pride March, and there was a beer company had a truck in the parade, and on the side was a man and a woman kissing.
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
But I mean, it was a gay parade. It was actually Bud Light, So I just think it was a little bit insensitive, and so it's a shame that's going. And there's always politicians on there, and of course we need politicians, but I personally think they're all crooks. But so it's not my parade; it's everybody's parade. So.
Right, it gets watered down and absorbed.
And I don't know. I mean, now we're in the military. Now we can get married. Now we can have kids. It's like, be careful what you wish for. We got.
Well, so in other words, the fact that it sounds like a lot of the sentiment is also that you used to be a legitimate counterculture, and that changes when you become culture.
Being inside and being accepted by people it's not very interesting, is it? You don't feel very radical.
Right. That's so fascinating. Yeah. It's happening broadly among artists in the current moment. I feel that to be an artist, you shouldn't be countercultural. You're encouraged to be more of a propagandist for this or that. And then that's what it's turned into. So, I can only understand what you're saying personally from that vantage point. But
I think an artist's job is to produce things that nobody else is producing. Things new and inspiring, and when you've got something to say. But if you have everybody saying the same thing, it's what happens here in Palm Springs, and there's nothing wrong with this. I'm not criticizing anybody, but it's a lot of people my age. And they were hippies in the 60s, wanted to change the world. Then they disappeared into corporate America when things got real, like the rent was due. And then they retired, and now they're bald with ponytails and doing art in Palm Springs. There's nothing wrong with that. But I look at these paintings, and it's a lot of the same thing, I sometimes think I'm going to kill the next abstract artist I come across. I used to go out, I was an entertainment photographer, event photographer, and I was at a drag show one night, and it was 2 hours late. And I thought to myself, if anybody comes on and does Whitney Houston smoking a crack pipe, I'm going to kill them. Then I realized I was. So I thought, this isn't photographs anymore. So I stopped taking photographs. I got to breaking point.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get to breaking point. No, I enjoy art and ideas that I've never heard before. And what do I want from this book? I want I want people to find out about their history, and I want people to go out and do something. Maybe because the first book I wrote, Chicago Whispers, they did a theatre group did a show about it, about one of the chapters in the thing about Black history. So they had people singing blues, gay blues songs, and so I would like something like that for this book too. I want this to inspire people to go on and do something, because one of the things I hate is people that don't do anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. It sounds really good. So you want to give cultural infusion for the book. To just like, here's where we came from, this is what we're about, and it's all stimulating and powerful, and don't allow it to get thrown out or lost.
That's what I want, but who cares what I want?
Well, yeah.
Well, there is something about the mainstream trying to put us gays into a package, like almost present us or make us fit into mainstream life, and I think that's sort of where
if we don't tell our stories, they will tell our stories for us, and I don't want to hear their version of our story. So that's why I do this. This is our story, and I want people to read it, especially young people, because they have a certain amount of freedom now in some of the big cities, and they're somewhat accepted. But I want them to see what it was like years ago and what other people had to go through for us to gain that acceptance. I think it's a good lesson to learn from the past.
Yeah, did you see the Netflix Peter Tatchell?
They've done something about him. I know him.
Yeah. So we had him on the show. Hating Peter Tatchell is what it's called. It just came out, and it kind of talks about his life in his own words, about how many times he was beat, and I think it's very important that sort of stuff gets across.
He's dedicated his whole life to activism. I did meet him once and talked to him. He's a very interesting man. The fight seems to be continuous, because it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Well, did you learn anything that you were surprised by, that you didn't expect to learn when you were researching?
I never expected the connection with the Panthers. That surprised me a lot. And I'm surprised how, what happened was after Stonewall, the GLF started at the University of Chicago. It was the university students that started the movement in Chicago. They were the first to have gay groups. There was a gay group in Chicago, the Mattachine Society, but it was very old-fashioned at the time. The Gay Liberation Front was vibrant. It came out of the anti-Vietnam War thing and all that, and women's liberation and all that stuff. So it was young, and they had the energy. But the people in the group that was in Chicago before, the Mattachine Society, they were older. Okay, they were wiser, but they were also burning out. They've been doing it for years, It needed a burst of energy, and I think Stonewall was that burst of energy.
Go through the whole thing. Is there something you would see that should have been done differently?
If I could go back in time, I wouldn't listen to psychiatrists. Yeah. Why gay people were persecuted in the first place. It was religion, and then in the 19th century, it was psychiatry.
Yeah.
They were the ones that kept the military in the Second World War. They were the ones that said we were insane. They wrote lots of books about it. There was money to be made from being homophobic. And various psychiatrists wrote anti-gay books and made a lot of money, until 1973, when the World Health Organization decided that homosexuality wasn't an illness anymore. And the headline on one newspaper said 20 million gays cured.
Oh, wow.
you know, and also in Norway, and was it Norway? I think it was in Norway, when homosexuality was an illness, according to all the medical things, it was just an illness. In Norway, gay people protested by staying home from work and phoning up and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sick. I'm a homosexual. I'm sick." I'd like to go back. If I could go back, I'd get rid of psychiatry. Half our problems would be gone.
Yeah, wow.
It's always surprising to me the lengths that young people went to, you know, and the risks they took so that we could all have, you know, a better life. That all surprised me. And also another thing that surprised me is I have names in here of activists that were in Chicago. But of course, as I said before, they were all at university in the beginning. And what happens at the end of university? They disappear. They go to work. They move back to the different towns. They don't stay in the same town. Students were gone. So there's all these names in here in this book that we don't know now. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they went. I tried finding some people, but they've just completely disappeared. So these are unsung heroes in this book. And I'd like to talk to some of them, but I'm damned if I can find them. You know, somebody called Bill Dry was a very active in Chicago, a student, and then did at Northwestern University. But what happened to him? I suppose when he got his degree or whatever you get at university, he just moved on. No. What surprised me? Everything surprises me. Intelligence, some young people. I look back when I was that age, and I wasn't involved in the gay movement. I was involved in other movements, but you know, they were just wonderful people. I just think they're unsung heroes, and I want them to be remembered and not forgotten.
How do you think the response for the book's going to be?
I don't know. I mean, it's selling. I mean, there's that response. I don't know how people are going to respond to it. I do tend to, I must admit, when I've finished a project and it's published, I've moved on to something else. You know, I mean, I do interviews like this about it, and, but I've moved on. I'm doing something. I'm doing another book at the moment.
Oh, so what do you move on to? Is it kind of the same area, or do you move on to something totally different?
I just finished a novel about Palm Springs. What I do is I do a history book, and then to take a break from that, I do a novel or write something else, just to stop myself. Because, I mean, it's very intense when you're doing history, you know, because it has to be so accurate, and there's a lot involved in it. And so I always take a break and write a novel. So I have written a novel about Palm Springs, but I've also started doing a book with Rick Carlin.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's a kind of encyclopedia of gay bars in Chicago. He asked me if I would do this with him. I think now because gay bars are closing down, you know. I told him, when he asked me, I said, this is a bigger project than you think. And he said, I really want to do it with you. I really want to do it. We have uncovered almost 1,000.
Wow. Yeah, because you're saying encyclopedia, so in other words, historic, not like a guidebook for tourists. Although it could have that too for the contemporary ones, but yeah.
No, it's not a guidebook. It's a thing about all the bars in Chicago. The earliest one I've got is about 1915, two lesbians opened a coffee shop in Chicago. It was pretty outrageous. And then there was another one. There was some more in the 20s, and in the 30s there was some, especially on the south side of Chicago in black neighborhoods. There were a lot of jazz clubs where gay people went and you could dance, and they had drag shows. All up into the 20s. In the Second World War, there was a lot of gay bars, you know. And 50s, 60s, right up until now, but we have almost 1,000 gay bars. And we're going to write about each one of them, everything we know about each one of them. But of course, a lot of them, we just have names and addresses, you know. And we want to make it a picture book. So there's going to be lots of bar ads. I've been collecting, people have been sending me matchbooks and anything to do with bars. But it's a history book. It's not, I mean, I hope it's going to be fun to read as well.
How long did you say you've been working on that?
I've only been working on it about 3 months, but I collected a lot of information about this in the beginning. I'm sending him information, and he's putting it into some kind of order. And I think it'll be ready by June next year. I mean, I know it's a bit fringe as a Chicago gay book, but I think I want to bring back people's memories. The bars were a lot of fun. I'm discovering a lot of interesting things. Like they used to have something called the banana swallowing contest. Which I don't know how they did that, but they'd have to. I want them to bring it back because I have to go to a banana, and I think I can swallow more banana than anybody else. If you know what I mean. I think I'm good at that.
Well, I guess a lot of the bars are going also because of the internet and the apps and all that grinder stuff, right?
Yeah, people meet in different ways. I mean, I'm very glad that I don't come from this generation because I don't think I would like to go online and meet people. I just don't. I have to see people's eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I went to a bar, I talk to people. I mean, it's very weird talking to you because I can't see you. But it's like a phone call, right? But I like to see people's eyes and just converse with people in that way. But to go online and meet a complete stranger, I don't think I could do that. I wouldn't be interested.
Well, it certainly changed the way people interact. It's certainly different, for sure. I guess that's taken away a lot of the bars, but that was a lot of the community, was the bars and the places to meet.
The gay bars were the community centers. You know, before Stonewall, there were no community centers. There were very few gay groups. But after Stonewall happened, everything just exploded. I mean, people started gay religious groups, the gay Catholic group. Everything started up, and there was in Chicago there was a Weight Watchers group called the Lavender Elephants.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so things went more out in the open at that point.
Yeah, people started forming their own groups. I mean, it was like, okay, the Catholics won't accept us, we'll start our own Catholic group. And that's what happened. Gay gardening groups, I mean, everything. Plumbers.
And gay Catholics, they wanted to punish themselves.
That's right. They just sat around with themselves. I don't know what gay Catholics.
It's like the gay Trumpies, you know. They just
right. They can't help themselves.
Yeah. They don't have partners because they.
Oh my!
Themselves.
Oh.
I make a mental note. It was 44 minutes in.
But I think that's great. I think it's really good work. I think that it should be done because a lot of the young people are going to have no idea. I don't think they know the community and how people relied on each other differently back then. I mean, they don't have that now. It's not the same.
I've done talks. I did a talk at Truman College, and first I did Columbia College, which is a liberal arts college, and it wasn't very good because the people there were more worried about their hairstyles than anything else, you know. And then I did another talk at Truman College, which is a blue-collar college, and the kids there were great. They were asking really interesting questions. As they walked in, I walked up to one of the women. She had a pair of jeans on, and I said, "I am making a citizen's arrest." it's 1973 and I'm arresting you for cross-dressing. And she said, why? I said, because you're wearing jeans and there's zip down the front of them. In Chicago, that was illegal until 1973.
Oh, get out of here. Wow.
Yeah, that was cross-dressing.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy stuff. Everybody was wearing, all the women were wearing jeans, but they only applied the law when they raided a lesbian bar.
Oh, I see.
You know, you had to wear 3 items of female apparel. And then 3 Latino drag queens were arrested, and they went to court, and the law was changed. They all turned up in court in drag.
Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah, and that changed in 1973, which is what I write about in Chicago After Stonewall, you know. But no, I mean, no, cross-dress.
You're saying for women to have gone out in public to follow the law, they had to have 3 items of female dress? Is that what you just said?
That's right, yeah. And when one woman told me they used to raid the lesbian bars, and when the police came in, they would run into the bathroom, because back then, a lot of it was masculine and feminine women.
Yeah.
But then they would run in the bathroom and swap shoes with their femme girlfriends, or swap a shirt, because a woman's shirt is buttoned down a different side to a man's shirt, or it was back then anyway.
Right.
And they would just change, so they had 3, while the police would batter the door down, they would be changing into their girlfriend's clothes. It was just absolute.
It's complete Gestapo stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also in the book is the 1973 case when I think 26 police got arrested, some of them sent to jail for screwing money out of gay bars. There was a huge court case.
Oh, so they were going and shaking them down and like the mob.
Yeah, and the mob was shaken down as well. So
right.
And some of the bars were paying $300 a month to the police
just to be left alone, or just for whatever reason.
I've spoken to people that worked in bars, and their job was to hand over the envelope to the cop that came in.
Oh man, yeah.
Got caught in 1973. Another guy I talked to, he was in he worked in a mob bar that was owned by the mob in the 60s, and his first day there, he was a drag queen, but the first day there, the owner showed him 3 guns strapped under the counter. And he said, if you get any trouble, shoot them and lock the front door.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And we'll deal with it. So it was pretty rough times, you know.
Yeah.
But no, in 1973, as I talk about in this book, there was a court case, and 26, I think, cops were taken off to jail.
Mm.
They took thousands of dollars from gay people.
Wow.
You know, we were an easy target, you know. And they owned all the bars. The mob owned all the bars. I think the last bar that was owned by the mob was in the 90s in Chicago.
Okay.
Still working. The mob was still there, you know. And it's still corrupt, but I don't think anybody pays the cops off anymore.
No, there's no real reason to anymore.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. There's one bar in Chicago, it's closed now, but it was a very raunchy bar. And I was told they made a very generous donation to the police fund at Christmas. Now, whether they were asked to or not, I don't know. But they could have raided that bar at any point in time and something was going on. I love that place.
Wow. So where do you think, what do you think? Where do you think gay community's going to go now? Or what do you think it's going to happen in the future then from something like now?
I don't know. I mean, I live in Palm Springs, which is over 50% gay.
Right.
I live in a bubble. What's happening? I mean, there's different issues now. The trans issue is the most prominent issue at the moment. And I don't think there's that many. Well, no, there is actually where I live. there's a transgender health and wellness center, which my husband volunteers at, doing publicity and fundraising for them. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. I've never really been involved in the gay world because I've always worked for a newspaper and I've been writing about the gay world. But you can't join, if you're a reporter, you can't join any groups, really. You have to stand outside of it and watch it to a certain extent. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm letting it unfold. I just observe and watch it. I don't do anything else.
It's interesting how, like you said, the trans issue is central now. The same thing is repeating where you have cisgender people writing alarmist books, warning, to create fear around trans people. It's the same thing you said was happening, like with the psychologist making money in the 50s, writing about gay people. It's the same sort of impulse.
It is.
Yeah. The same sort of fear, too.
Right. It's exactly. But I mean, the trans issue is difficult because I've stopped talking about it because whatever you say is wrong.
Yeah, it's very, very delicate to talk about. We've talked about it a lot on here. You have to navigate very consciously.
Yeah, it is because, these people have been persecuted all these years. And, it's the same with the women's movement, which I actually write about in Chicago After Stonewall because women became separatists. Women's separatism. And they wanted nothing to do with gay men, lesbians, wanted nothing.
Yeah.
And there was all that, and that was vicious. In one lesbian paper in Chicago, they asked women if they were going to the gay pride march, and one woman said, "No, I won't go because it's run by faggots."
Ooh, yeah. You're seeing that same manifestation with the trans issue. It's the same split dividing line among different groups that have differing levels of oppression or marginalization. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, it is, but it's not helpful. But
yeah, it doesn't get anywhere where they intend to go. Anybody where they intend to go.
Pushes people away. Yeah. If you're older, it's different for me. I worked for the papers, for 30 years or whatever. So I've seen this whole thing progress. But for the regular gay guy who's in his 60s, he doesn't understand this,
right.
And he is berated for asking even simple questions if they're not phrased in the right way. So I don't think it's helpful. But the other thing is, I also think, like the women's movement, they had to go through this period. They had to go through this angry period to do this. And
that's an interesting point because when you're assimilating, when you're coming from a minority position into the broader culture, it's inevitably there's going to be friction and different outgroups are going to clash. So from an aerial view, it makes sense. But like you said about berating, that's something Al always says. It's like there's no need to get angry. Like it really hurts your own cause when you start telling people off and just getting irate with people.
Right, you can expect somebody in their 70s to understand this because they've grown up most of their life with two genders.
Correct, yeah.
And they knew that there were some people that were in between somewhere. Now it's exploded, and they're put off. I know people that are put off by the anger. And even I stopped talking. I'm talking about it now, but I stopped talking about it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's also very tied up in your own personage, your own ability to find, like you said, there was, for most years, two genders and some people were in between. Like, to the extent that a given individual has the fluidity within themselves, they can navigate it. But if somebody is just more gendered, it's going to seem really shocking, and it's going to be a big jolt. So, yeah, I agree. It is, I'll get off it, because it's difficult to talk about.
It is, and whatever you say is wrong. People will complain about what I've just said.
Oh, yeah, and also me being a cis or cis-ish, a friend recently called me, like, I've been told not to ever talk about it. Like, I shouldn't talk about it because me just talking about it is offensive. So you can't win.
No.
Yeah.
No, I prefer to think gender doesn't exist,
which is funny because that's a political position in and of itself, but I hear you. There's a lot of truth in that. then all ships can rise with that tide. It's just, it doesn't have to exist.
And maybe I'm just bitter because I don't have really nice legs for a giraffe.
Now we're getting somewhere. Yeah.
That would be a pretty...
Yeah.
That's the only good thing I have is nice legs.
Yeah. you had to in this button, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, you know, I really don't understand the anger. That's sort of what surprised me. That's just, you know, why.
I understand the anger. I just don't understand where it's going. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's sort of what I mean. I just don't know.
They sometimes try to stop the gay parades. I would have thought go to something Republicans say, and you know. They're the ones, but they say there's a lot of racism in the gay community, and there is. I just don't know if stopping a parade is the way to deal with it, but if that's what they need to do, that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
I fully understand the anger. I just think it should be applied to the right place. You know, some places are more transphobic than other places.
Yeah. Or applied at all, right? Instead of just being anger where there's shouting on the internet, it can be applied to any sort of action so you can play it through and see the outcome. So I think that's the real problem, is that it's a performative anger in a lot of cases.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I don't know. I know my friends that have transitioned they're not involved in all that. They're just...
Oh, likewise. Thank you for saying that, because I've felt the same in my social circle. It's ironic that they have other voices screaming on their behalf in a lot of cases where it's like, they're just off living their lives.
Yeah, but, you know, I don't agree with all gay people, you know. I happen to think that I hate most gay movies I can't watch, you know.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Well, I can only imagine, the amount of button pushing that must go on. And like you said, it's not always... your own community that gets to tell the story.
Right. No, we have to all tell our own story. I've written about, in Chicago After Stonewall, I've written about, there's a whole chapter on trans issues. And I thought when I was writing it, I thought, oh God, someone's going to complain because I use the word transvestite, and that's probably wrong. But this is of the period, you know? This is about then.
It's in context, yeah.
A history book. This is what happened then. Not, you know, you can't go back and rewrite it. I can't go back and use the appropriate language to describe something that happened in the early 70s. I have to use the language at the time. And one thing I do a lot is I put articles in there from newspapers because I like them to look back and see, the readers to look back and see the voices of the period.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's very good.
Not me analyzing stuff. I don't want to do that. Not what I think or what people know. This is what people wrote then. This is what they said. I've done a lot of things about I don't know what you call them, the advice columnists. We call them agony ants in England. Those people, because they were very influential, you know, and Ann Landers was homophobic.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Things about gay people. But that's what people saw. They saw the Ann Landers column, you know. So.
Yeah, there's no point in sanitizing anything, like any content or language. Like, it doesn't make people less coarse on the inside if you sanitize the surface. So it's a double-edged sword. It's one thing to be polite and appropriate and speak sensitively, but you can't really weaponize that toward making people compassionate. So I think it's really good that you share that stuff.
I'm not rewriting history. That's not my job here.
You got it. Yeah. No, well said. It sounds really good.
It's just the facts. It's just what people lived, you know.
Yeah, and that's important.
My history. I've read accounts of Stonewall that are just stupid.
Yeah. You know. Okay, so now, is this book going to be available everywhere? Like I see, of course, it'll be on the Rattling Good Yarns website, but is it going to be everywhere too?
Yes, it is. If you go to the Rattling Good Yarns website, I'll sign a copy. but you can get it from Amazon. You can actually order it from, I can't believe this, you can order it from Walmart.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
On their website, I just advised people on Facebook, I said, wear something ridiculous and go and buy my book in Walmart.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Yeah.
That is, hey, there's no two ways about it. That's making it. Your thing is in Walmart. That's, you're hitting everyone.
No.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't got it on the shelves, but they got it on the website. You could order it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to go in Walmart. I've never been in Walmart, but I'm tempted to go in and order the book.
Yeah, Walmart needs all the counterculture it can get, so.
No, I think you can get it at Target as well.
Oh, no, there you go. So you're, that's good. You're in all the right institutions. They need more of this content.
Right.
Yeah, I have when I go into, I'm not even kidding, when I go into Walmart, I have a panic attack. It's like being at a concert at Madison Square Garden. It's like people are just tidal waving over you. So it's good you've never been there. I would stay away.
Yeah, it's not a good place.
What's this I hear about the Castro diaspora? Do you know anything about that?
I do not know.
I've heard that everybody's moving from San Francisco to Palm Springs.
Oh, is that what they're calling it? Yeah, I know a lot of people are leaving San Francisco just because, we have an affordable housing thing here that just never quits. So that probably is a component of it. But I didn't realize they were going to Palm Springs particularly. That's funny.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know. It could be just a press thing that somebody made up somewhere. But, I mean, I do know the prices have gone through the roof.
Oh, it's really, really bad. And I'm constantly, I have a newspaper up here, so we're constantly reporting on affordable housing. And it's just completely stuck, and it's been that way for decades now. So it's kind of a daunting issue.
Well, this is fascinating, and again, thank you very much, and thank you for doing the book and talking to us. And again, the book we're talking about is Chicago After Stonewall, and that's a history of the LGBTQ Chicago from gay life to gay lib. And our guest has been the author of that, Saint Sukie de la Croix. Thank you for being here.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Well, good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.